It's time to roast the roaster. The analysts who write up the draft profiles that we've been studying the last several months, they have a hard job, and quite often they get a lot of it right. But sometimes they miss, and now it's time to hold their feet to the fire. Hello and welcome into the studio. I am Phil Milani alongside Sidney Jones and Eric Dalala. Guys, these draft profiles, they're hard to come up with. A lot of times, it's pretty accurate, but sometimes they miss. And we wanted to go over a few current Broncos players who they weren't quite spot on with. And let's start with Justin Simmons here from NFL.com. In 2016, said he could be dragged for a ride against size when tackling. Becomes a spectator rather than a participant if he feels like he can't range to deep balls outside the numbers. And as a single high safety, can be fooled into overcommitting to a side by clever quarterbacks who lead him with false glances. Guys, just a little bit off on Justin Simmons, huh?
Yeah, a little bit, Phil, just a little bit. No, very often. I know, like you mentioned, it is hard to predict these players' careers, but I mean, if you look at Justin, you look at his stats, I mean, he has had 27 interceptions, over 55 passes defended since entering the league. You look at a season last year, it's 6 interceptions. He was tied for the most in the league last year, and I mean, all of those statements couldn't be more wrong about Justin.
Yeah, I mean, he's picked off some pretty clever quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick? He's a guy who went to Harvard. You think that final play in the end zone against the Dolphins a couple of years ago, Justin Simmons undercuts the receiver, makes a game-winning play. That's kind of an example of a not being looked off by a clever quarterback there. But you just think of so many different plays in his career, whether it's against the Raiders or a play against Washington where he makes a game-saving interception. Those sorts of things where he's a game-changing player back there. And then from a physicality standpoint, Phil, a bunch of TFLs here. I think only one season where he hasn't had multiple tackles for loss. We've seen in recent years, I think back to a game against the Browns where Justin knifed in and made a tackle behind the line of scrimmage for a big either third down or fourth down stop. He's shown he can play at the line of scrimmage to be a physical guy. So, yeah, he's proven that a little bit wrong. He would not have fallen to the end of the third round, certainly if you knew the type of player he was going to be.
Yeah, exactly. He's the only active player with at least 4 interceptions in each of the last 4 seasons. So an all-pro type of a player, and you're right, Eric, would not have lasted to the third round if more people were accurate on him coming out of Boston College. Let's move on here to Tim Patrick. This is from PFF.com. Tim Patrick, of course, a college free agent in 2017, has inconsistent hands and had a couple of drops which were results of concentration lapses, does not high point jump balls, but lets them into his body, which allows defenders to make plays on the football. Sidney, what do you think about that?
Honestly, Phil, I think this is one of the funniest ones that we're going to cover today. I mean, Tim has arguably the best hands in the receivers room. I think back to his 2020 season when he had 0 drops and he was targeted 70-plus times. I mean, he couldn't be more wrong about Tim. And you mentioned the jump balls. I mean, there's so many plays, so many different highlights over the past couple of years of Tim winning jump balls. I mean, he has great timing. He has great concentration. I mean, I think Tim is a really underrated receiver in this league, and I'm excited to see him back out there this season.
Yeah, it's a bummer that he got hurt last year because I think everyone was excited for him to take another step forward. 2 consecutive years without a single drop. That's impressive. You think that play he made in Dallas over Trayvon Diggs. You think about a play he made a couple of years ago against Cincinnati here in Denver where he came back, high-pointed the ball. I think of some catches in Kansas City, in Arrowhead, playing against the Chiefs, where he goes up and just takes the ball out of the air. I don't think, Phil, the Broncos have a more aggressive receiver when the ball's in the air. He owns that ball in his mind. He goes and gets it. And, he's also got that mentality, that dog mentality in him. I think that's part of why he goes up and he makes those catches. It must be hard to measure mentality when you're doing these evaluations just from watching the film. But if you know Tim Patrick, he's not going to let somebody take that away from him.
He's got that dog in him, huh?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. Led the Broncos with 5 touchdowns in 2021. Earned a nice little contract there, and certainly was missed last year. I think you're right, Eric. You miss out some of those personality traits that make a guy a good football player, and Tim Patrick certainly has that. The final one that we wanted to get to here, D.J. Jones. This is from 2017 as well. This is from Bleacher Report. A lack of lateral quickness and burst are a major concern for projecting Jones forward to the NFL. He does not have the first step to beat a blocker to the gap and is too easily controlled with an angle block or chip. D.J. Jones was a heck of an addition last year.
He was. Talk about having that dog in them. D.J. Jones is another one of those guys, and I think just looking at his stats refutes all of those statements, Phil. I mean, he has over 160 tackles since entering the league, and over 25 of those have been tackles for loss. And he is a really good player. It's like you mentioned, we brought him in to stop the run, and that's exactly what he came in and did. So, I mean, it's great to see these players.
He's a Jones.
Refuting those.
He is a Jones. He's a Jones.
I know what it's like to be one.
Yeah, I think when you talk about these big guys in the middle of the defense, you kind of just think, okay, well, they need to take on a couple of blocks. They need to just hold their position on the line. You let the linebackers then come in and make the plays. But we've seen a bunch of times when D.J. Jones has gone and made that play himself. I think back to a game in Las Vegas last season. He had a couple of tackles for loss. He had a sack where he was just through the middle of the line very quickly. And for a guy who's as big as he is and as powerful and as strong as he is, he does have that quickness to get through the line. And if you're not kind of, as an offensive line, if you're not setting your assignments or you just have a breakdown one-on-one, he's going to beat you. He's going to be through there. He can bring a running back down quickly. He can get to your quarterback. He's a heck of a player, and I think you saw, too, when he was out toward the end of the season, the difference in what the Broncos defense was able to do. I mean, he just impressive player.
Yeah, when George Payton talked about him last year when they signed him as a free agent, said that DJ is one of the better run defenders in the entire league. So a little bit of a miss there, but that's, again, why he fell to the 6th round in 2017. So a lot of people missed on him there. So just a couple of misses on some of these draft profiles. Now, lucky that they're Broncos. All right, that's going to do it for us. For Eric Dalala and Sidney Jones, I'm Phil Maloney.